Hello, everyone, and welcome to OSC Live, a weekly broadcast on blockchain, branded tokens, and token economies. And we like to feature special guests, such as today, we have the CTO of BitGo, Ben Chan, with us today. We're going to be talking about cryptocurrency custodial solutions. And on this podcast, we always like to have special guests talking about the latest trends in blockchain and the latest technology that these individuals are working on. So, Ben, welcome to OC Live.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for the welcome. I'm glad to be here and happy to speak.
So, you're from BitGo, and BitGo has been around for over 4 years. Can you tell us about when you joined BitGo and your background before, or like when you got into crypto and blockchain?
Yeah, sure. So I got into, so I joined BitGo in 2014. I got into Bitcoin around 2012, I think. And at the time, I think I just arrived in California. I was working for Microsoft on a team that was doing a platform for conversation understanding. It was used, on the Connect at first, and then we branched out to every other Microsoft property that does speech recognition and language and intent and so on. And so I was working on a platform at the time, and when I first heard about Bitcoin, and I always thought it was really interesting in that it was really open at the time, very expandable. Back in 2012, people looked at Bitcoin script a little bit like how we look at like Ethereum smart contracts now, in that they can be used to program more than just the transfer of money. Meaning that the core idea is that a piece of code can decide how much money you can unlock or how much money gets sent to where. And I thought that was the first time that firstly that was possible because of math and not because of say nation states, or not because of accounts which were tied to people's names, but it was possible because of math and consensus. And I thought that was very interesting. And so I spent a lot of time just working on side projects in the Bitcoin space. One of my most fun ones that I remember actually was a payment system over HTTP, the status code 402, which is a payment required. And it's never been used in HTTP, and I always wanted to activate that for Bitcoin. So I've always been very interested in machine-to-machine payments. And then in 2013, many people that were around then probably remember Mt. Gox, which was a very, very large exchange that was hacked and lost a huge amount of money and caused the value and trust in Bitcoin to crash. And that's when I kind of thought, I'm really keen on this space, and I really want to be a part of the industry. And so I looked into how to solve this problem in building multi-sig wallets, and that's what led me to be so passionate about joining BitGo.
Great. So, were you one of the first people to join BitGo? Are you one of the founders?
I'm not one of the founders. I was one of the first people to join at the time. And Mike Belshi is actually the founder and CEO of BitGo right now. And at the time, I heard about how he had worked in Google on Chrome, and was one of the founding members of the Chrome team, and also was behind HTTP2 Speedy, which felt to me like this was a sign of really smart people getting into the space, and I wanted to be a part of that.
Great, very good. So now moving on to what you guys do, which is custodialship. Why is this such a big deal? We see other companies such as Coinbase trying to provide services for this as well. So what is the custodial problem, and what does BitGo hope to solve with this issue?
Yeah, sure. So custodianship is well, by the definition, is actually quite a simple definition. It's the act of holding an asset on behalf of somebody else. So anyone can be a custodian. I could store some of my Bitcoins with you, and then you would be my custodian, and I could trust you in that way. Now, where this starts to get interesting, with the growth of how we're seeing, cryptocurrency come together with, financial services and financial institutions these days, is that in the context of where you want to, you're holding funds for someone else. For example, a bank or a hedge fund, where they take investments of other people's money. That's where you get more of concept of custodianship becoming more important, because if I want to store my own money, it's kind of like, I can choose, how I want to store it. And I can store it on my laptop, I can store it cold. But if I want to store someone else's money, and I'm kind of acting as on behalf of my investors, then it's more important that you take care of other people's money, and there are more stringent requirements for that. As you can imagine, right? Like these rules are there to put in trust in the financial system, or in general, that when you put your money with someone else, they exercise some basic caution or care on making sure that it doesn't get lost. Another big reason why you can think about why a custodian is needed is if you think about the case of like Bernie Madoff, back in the last financial crisis. He was telling people that he had a lot of money, and that he was making a lot of money, and really behind it was a Ponzi scheme. But he was able to keep up this scheme because he was able to tell people that he had an increasing amount of money in his fund. Now, what the purpose of a custodian is to actually open up and be regulatory compliant, such that there's reporting in there, so that people can tell actually how much money he actually really had. And so that's actually kind of really important. So BitGo Trust Company, it's regulated by the South Dakota Division of Banking, and so it allows us to be a qualified custodian. And a qualified custodian is really just a custodian that has undergone financial security and compliance controls to meet standards that these regulators require to hold assets on behalf of someone else.
Great. So you guys mainly provide these custodian solutions for the financial institutions and the hedge funds?
Yeah, we provide it for mostly their institutions. We do provide it for some large individuals as well, large-sized individual funds, or off small home and office funds. But that's largely our business. And BitGo has always been, an enterprise company. Even prior to us getting into the custodianship space, we were more known, say from 2014 to 2017, for being really just a platform for scalability and security for wallets. So at the time, you might have known us from where we actually helped Bitstamp with building their wallets on the back end. We have hundreds of exchanges and institutions around the world, and we process about 15% of all Bitcoin transactions globally. So that's what our traditional business has been, always in security and scalability. So the custodianship is just on top of that, but it's very, very much needed.
Great. And you guys also started off with regular Bitcoin wallets, right? You provided a platform where a user can create a Bitcoin wallet.
Yeah, actually, that's quite interesting. We started off, being as a startup, we were really unsure whether we should go in the direction of consumer or enterprise at the time. And this was 5 years ago. We had this multi-sig wallet, this multi-sig Bitcoin wallet, and then we had a multi-sig Ethereum wallet. And every company has to decide what the main kind of main customer is. And over time, we actually tried different kind of business models and different types of products. Like we had one where you would pay $15 a month, or something like that, and you would get basically an enterprise wallet. So that was a different business model from what we have now. And you would get a wallet where you could share with other people. And what I think it came down to is that enterprises like the product a lot more, because as an individual, you can almost secure your own funds. It's better to have someone else secure it for you. But as a company, you don't want to have a single point of failure at any point.
Definitely, and I think that's where multi-sig wallets became to sort of grow in usage. I think it was 2014 when we started to see multi-sig come in. So I guess we'll jump into different types of custodianship. So first, there's just a regular Bitcoin wallet, which comes with a private key and a public key, and
Mhm.
that is there is a single point of failure there, right? If a company were to use only traditional wallets, it'd be if the private key is compromised, then there's nothing they can do, right?
Yeah, I mean, for single sig wallets, you really want to be very careful with the private key, because if anyone compromises it, even internally or externally, you wouldn't be able to know who actually had taken it. If me and you shared a single private key, for example, and the money were to have mysteriously left the account, we wouldn't be able to tell whether who had been hacked or whether it was an internal job. So that's one of the things about single key wallets.
Great. And then came the introduction of multi-sig wallets, which became helpful, right? So it essentially added multiple key pairs. So if I were to lose one key, there's still two other keys out there that I could have placed that can still provide me access to the cryptocurrency wallet. So can you talk a little bit about the emergence of how enterprises were or still are using multi-sig wallets?
Yeah, I think that it started to come out mainly after the Mt. Gox incident many years ago now. And I think it when I think about it, it has two main advantages. The first one is security. Now you need more than one key to transact, so you can actually tell who signed with which key if you assign the keys differently. The second thing is a backup. So now you can lose up to one key if you have a 2 of 3 kind of multisig, and you can lose up to one key and you can still recover your funds. So I think that's pretty awesome. It's actually the first time that you can do anything like that. There's no concept of multi-sig in the real world. You have like those vaults where or bank vaults where they tell you need to have two people sign in order to go in, but actually that's actually still in the custodianship of the bank. So it's like a single sig in the bank, where they store your goods.
Great.
But blockchain actually allows this, which is really awesome.
So with multi-sig, if it was an individual, they can give their brother one key and their mom a different key. But with the institution, what are the common things that they or common places that they put their other keys? Do they get another like a trusted third party, such as an audit firm, to hold one of the three keys?
So this has been evolving over the years. So initially, when the companies were smaller, if they had, two founders, they would just have both of them each hold a key, and with the third key, they would have a key ceremony. Make the key together and go and put it in the vault, which would require both of them to be there, or something like that. With the larger sized companies, they would generally. It's a mix. Right now, the model has moved to such that the companies as a whole would have some keys on their side, so one or two, and then they would have BitGo as a co-signer. And so there's a concept of a co-signer where every transaction coming out of the wallet in typical operation will require a signature from a key at the company and also a signature at a secondary entity like a co-signer like BitGo. And so this prevents the case where some insider at the company was able to get both of the keys.
Great. So, what are the some other custodian solutions that BitGo provides other than multi-sig? I know do you guys still provide like customization on certain wallets, such as spending limits?
Yeah, so those are policies that are layered on top of the co-signer. So as a co-signer, you can think about it like it's an automated second signer for every transaction. And so you can tie in a lot of other business logic into whether or not that signature gets applied. It's not just as simple as, oh, did you put in your OTP and therefore I'll sign with you. You can tie in, like you said, some spending limits. You can tie in whitelists. You can tie in external oracles, which allow you to bring in information from the internet or anywhere in the world. You can do time limits, and so it's pretty customizable on the policy side.
Great. So we discussed multi-sig wallets and co-signing services. Can you talk a little bit about child wallets and how they compare to multi-sig?
When you say child wallets, you mean like hierarchical derivative wallets, like HD wallets?
Yeah, yeah.
They actually work hand in hand. So it's part of all our multi-sig wallets are actually HD wallets as well. And the basic concept is that with a common set of keys on the top root, you're able to generate lots of other keys underneath. And so this way, instead of generating, a typical case at an exchange, for instance, is an exchange like Bitstamp or Corbit or Upbit, like our customers. They have hundreds of millions of customers, right, underneath, and they always want to give a separate like deposit address for each one of their customers who are consumers that want to deposit coins. And so you need lots of different addresses. Now, instead of just making a separate private key for each address, what you do is you use a HD scheme. So it's a hierarchical scheme, and in which it's a standard for how, with a root key, you're able to generate many sub-child keys and many child addresses based on storing just one root key. And this way, it's a lot easier than storing a million keys.
Great. Very, very interesting. So is there sort of one solution that you've seen many enterprises use? Is there sort of like a very common solution that they all use, or is it sort of case by case depending on what your business is? Each business has a different solution.
For like hierarchical wallets, I mean, so BIP32 is pretty standard. All wallets, whether it's a multi-sig wallet or not a multi-sig wallet, they tend to use HD because otherwise you have to store a different key for each address, and that's pretty cumbersome.
Great. And now we'll jump into something that BitGo recently announced, which was WBTC. Can you talk to us about what that is?
Oh, yeah, sure. This is something I'm really interested in. In fact, right now, I'm in Prague at the DevCon, speaking with lots of the founding partners and people of the community that have been helpful in this launch. So WBTC stands for Wrapped Bitcoin, and it's actually a collaborative effort with community of partners that are coming together to launch a fully 100% reserve backed Bitcoin on Ethereum as an ERC20 token. Do you know like what an ERC20 token is?
Yeah, it's pretty.
Yeah, sure, of course. So everyone knows how to use ERC20 tokens already, and everyone knows what Bitcoin is. I think it's one of the most worth, highest value cryptocurrencies in the space, and many people respect its value and stability. But at the same time, Ethereum and ERC20 tokens are a very prevalent, standard that everyone uses and all the decentralized apps use for trading, for collateral, and so on. And so Bitcoin is going to be, supported on this standard as an ERC20 token, and so you can use it too.
Great. So you see Bitcoin as staying as a respected like store of value.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I do. I've been in Bitcoin for a while, and the thing is, over the years, it's been seen as many things. Some people say it's a store of value. Some people say it's a payment system. Some people say it's like meant to be censorship resistant. And for me, I think it's a store of value. So, but it could be more. Who knows?
Only time will tell. So is WBTC, is that sort of a Bitcoin pegged ERC20?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it is. It's really not meant to be too difficult in terms of the implementation. It is a Bitcoin pegged ERC20. On one side, you're going to have a custodian of Bitcoin, which is BitGo. And then the custodians job are to keep the Bitcoin safe on the Bitcoin chain and issue together with merchants and other members of the WBTC DAO on the Ethereum side together issue WBTC tokens. And so there needs to be multi-sig security on both sides, and it needs to be very, very open and transparent.
So what are some of the use cases for WPTC? Is it meant to be as used as a spending token?
Well, I think that would depend. I think payments on any blockchain right now, whether you're talking about payments on Ethereum or Bitcoin, have yet to be proven. I think that Ethereum has a slightly higher TPS than Bitcoin, and so sending between people or exchanges, that makes it a little bit quicker and maybe slightly cheaper. So as an ERC20 token, that could be one of the uses. But I feel like the whole promise of Ethereum in being a world computer or smart contract platform is that you can do smart contracts on and you can make agreements for stable lending, whether it's payments or whether it's like decentralized exchanges, or say you wanted to make an insurance contract, like maybe I was afraid that my flight would get delayed and I want to buy some insurance on that. So you can use a stable coin like USD, or you can use BTC, which is also a store of value. And because both of them are ERC20 tokens now.
Great. So what are some of the reasons that BitGo decided to participate in the WBTC project?
Sure, yeah. I think this goes like way back for me. BitGo's original mission, or whatever it was, the tagline we had was securing the world's Bitcoin. And then the second tagline we had was putting trust in digital currency. And then I think that what we're saying now is that we want to make digital currency usable for business. And I feel like for all three of them, this project makes a lot of sense. It's securing Bitcoin. It's adding trust in the WBTC token and then digital currency, and it's making Bitcoin more usable in that now it's going to be able to be applied to all these new use cases, these decentralized cases, and I think that has a lot of fundamental value in it. It's also very practical, So BitGo as a company has always been about how can we help with the volume, and how can we make it easier for exchanges to, or any businesses to get into, cryptocurrency and digital currency, and so this is one way that we feel is something that we can provide in the very short term. In a very short time span, and get it launched. And tokenizing, I think tokenization of assets in general is something that is, for me, one of the large applications of the blockchain. And I think that Bitcoin is probably one of the tokens that is going to have the highest value.
Great. So what are some of the partners that are involved in the WBTC project? Right, this is not just BitGo. This involves.
Oh yeah. I don't think that we would have been able to do this without the partners at all. I mean, when you look at it, I think decentralization is super important for WBTC because many of the use cases of WBTC are decentralized applications. So when you think about like tokenization of an asset, like say USD, for instance, of which there are many out there, you could argue that like USDT, like Tether, is totally centralized, and it's very centralized, but somehow it still works because it was the first one out there. Even though people question it, and I don't have an opinion on that. But the point is that it is totally based upon people trusting that the USDT is really backed by real US dollars, right? But I think the reason why that works is because there was clearly a need on even centralized exchanges to have a representation of USD within within a blockchain. And so that was very needed in a centralized sense. With WBTC, the main, I think, first great use cases will be with decentralized applications, and that's why I think it has to be more decentralized than USD coin.
Great,
and also it can be.
Nice. So I guess we'll end the podcast with some like some broader questions on scalability and tokenization. We'll start off with your opinion on scaling. So there's Ethereum, right? And everybody knows that Ethereum can't scale today. OST is working on Mosaic, which is a proposal to scale dApps on Ethereum today with the way Ethereum is. Ethereum is actually Ethereum itself is working on Ethereum 2.0, which will include sharding and delegated proof of stake. And there's also EOS now, which some companies are building on EOS versus Ethereum. So there's a lot of talk going around the topic of scalability. So what's your opinion on scalability and scaling blockchains to be able to meet the demand of real world applications?
Yeah, sure. I think that for us, we care a lot about scalability. I think we, how would I put this? We were at the front lines when at the start of this year there were so many people coming into the space that there were more transactions out there than could fit into blocks, and that was a bit painful for me because as someone that wants to push the space forward and get as many people as we can, I feel like we could have used the opportunity of everyone coming in to actually show that we could do it or do a better job of that, right? It's like we were turning customers away from the door. So I think it's awesome that we have so many different efforts out there to actually scale up and make sure we can take care of all the customers the next time we get a chance, which I'm sure will come. So I think when we look at scalability, it's along the lines of how practical we can be to how much in the future you want to plan for. And certain solutions are further out there, like Ethereum 2.0 is really awesome, but it's still not coming next month. Whereas there are other solutions like OST or maybe some early plasma prototype, like plasma standards that are being, projects that are building on that standard that are coming up with what looks like a workable solution. I think that the most important part about scalability is actually adoption. So there's no point, of selling like a database with 1 billion transactions per second if nobody's going to use it. So for us, what we want to see is like either real world use cases or the ability to apply the scalability to some of the challenges in existing blockchain networks today. I think like a lot of people still want to send ERC20 and a lot of people want to send ETH. And if we can take that problem and say like, how can we do it, send it really quickly and at a really cheap cost without too many, too many kind of downsides or too many challenges and complexity around it, then I think people will use it.
Great. So usability, obviously one of the major problems to solve that everybody's sort of racing to solve.
Yeah.
First scalability, then or whichever, they're both problems that need to be solved. So with usability comes tokenization. So what's your opinion on the tokenization of platforms? Do you believe that once scalability is solved, tokenization will sort of kick off with these applications?
No, I think people are already trying to tokenize. Actually, that's different for me. I think that tokenization actually, I think technology aside, like so the people doing the tokenization have to have an expectation or an assumption that it will scale. Otherwise, no point tokenizing on a platform that runs, in a way that doesn't scale your business. You have to imagine that the infrastructure will will support your token in all the transactions. I think the main challenge for tokenization actually is the quality of the token, of what is being tokenized. So, and this is just my input. I feel like if we can tokenize assets or issuers which really matter and people want to, be a holder of that token, then I think that's a useful token, and that you will then see the need for those tokens to be adopted. So I think that's actually the biggest deal in tokenization, and that's where it gets interesting, right? So if you look at it in the past, there was many ICOs being tokenized. Some ICOs were pretty good in terms of what they represented, the value and the ability to participate in a community, and some ICOs were not so good in that the tokens are not really worth a lot and nobody really cares about them. And going forward, like, there's so much promising types of tokens that we're going to be seeing. So things like, more tokenized precious metal assets like gold, tokenized land. You want to take an ownership of some land, but you don't want to have to buy a whole apartment. I think that's very interesting and a great use case that is definitely worth something, like it or not. And then securities. So when it comes to securities, I think it's super important that the issuer is very important. So like, whether you're tokenizing like a Tesla stock, or whether you're tokenizing some maybe not so worthwhile company, matters a big difference on whether that tokenization platform is going to succeed. So I think that's actually probably the largest bottleneck. And then scaling, it can be solved for sure. The interesting thing is, like I was saying, like how there's so many like practical versus like futuristic solutions out there. I think that the success of a tokenization platform or a blockchain platform that claims to do tokenization depends a lot on the timing of when we will see such a great token use case.
Great. Value and utility, obviously very, very important here. So it's a case-by-case basis on what the token is for and what each mainstream application uses it or decides to use it for.
Yeah.
So ending the show with an outlook on both BitGo and the industry. So it's been over 4 years since BitGo got started, and you guys have seen some major progress in your platform. I think is CME Group one of your clients?
Yeah. And if you've recently read up on us, we also got funded by Goldman Sachs recently.
Great. So some very, very major things happening for BitGo. So what's next for BitGo, and where do you see the industry going?
So BitGo right now, we're working on two main projects. We're working on this WBTC initiative, which is helping out as part of the community there to create this Bitcoin token. And second, we are working really hard on our custodianship product. And I think that the first step there is that we really have to have a great experience for people that want to put in their assets with us. We need to make it as trustable and as confidence inspiring as a traditional custodian, in that we need financial institutions to want to trust us, and for us to set up the right amount of combination of security, which is a combination of software and processes and people and physical security and so on. Putting all those together takes a lot of time, but the confidence is showing, and we're getting lots of institutional interest. So I think that's very helpful.
Great, and I'll go ahead and add some links to BitGo down below in the description if you guys watching live want to check it out. We have no questions so far from the live chat, but going forward, for those of you watching this, we will be posting a Reddit thread for each upcoming guest, and you can also add in your questions there. And yeah, I think this was a great overview of BitGo and understanding a little bit about wallet solutions and custody in the industry. And yeah, for listeners, this is our last episode of October. This is our 31st episode, and it's October 31st. So happy Halloween to all of you watching. We will be announcing the November guests by this Friday, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Ben, thank you for joining us on OST Live today.
Thank you. Happy Halloween to you too.